Okay.
progress.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. So, please tell us a bit about yourself and your growing up days.
So I was I'm Jide Martin.
Yes.
Fortunate to be CEO of Comic Republic. I studied law at the Obafemi Awolowo University. I born and bred Lagos. At some point in time, parents traveled, and of course they would tag along as handmade. But when I was young, my mom really tried to keep us indoors, and I think for me that's how my comic career started. And it's weird because a couple of years down the line, she would try to dissuade me from going into comics. But originally, I was credited to her because she didn't want us to go out. So it first started with, I don't know if you guys knew those days of cable, those cables that look like masts, like proper antenna. She first started with buying us cable TV to keep us in, and then she discovered the Lupoju supermarket, and I think I followed her one day, and I was so excited about the comic books. And people who are nerding about the Lupoju supermarket know what I'm talking about. And when she saw that I was excited, she made sure that every Sunday was a thing, because I was always excited. We go and pick up 2 or 3 comic books. And to her dismay, I would trace on every single one of them. And back in those days, it was like 2 naira 50 kobo, which was a lot of money then, and she would spend hard money. She would spend about 5 naira every weekend to buy me at least 2 comic books. I remember it was because I was excited about those 2 comic books every Sunday. And I would trace on all of them. And that's how, my art journey started. It started for me tracing to actually now drawing on my own. And then really falling in love with comics, and I followed everything. When you mention titles like Submariner, then you know that the person is a real comic fan, because those are, characters that are not around these days, but where, the days of Peacemaker and all of those kind of, titles, Conan the Barbarian and the rest. So I grew up on that, and it actually really kept me indoors. I've always really tried to figure out how things work, and I did what I wanted to do. And this is one of the popular things I said. I wasn't big on what mommy or daddy said. I've always been a stubborn little child, right? And I wasn't that big on religion, but I loved my superheroes, and I say to tomorrow that superheroes saved my life, because when kids were excited about doing the wrong things, I actually wanted to be a hero. I was so focused about being good, being strong, being efficient, and wanting to save the day. So, I was really trying to save people, if it's by talking to them or trying to do the right thing, and I always tell them, why are you not like this character? And they're like, it's for white people. And I grew up with that anger that, like, somehow I knew that, maybe because I felt like to me, it didn't matter whether I was white or not. And that was when it dawned on me that I needed to create icons that people that looked like me could believe in, and that really governed most of my childhood. Growing up in school, even though when I entered school, I was a complete geek. Now these days it's cool to say you're a geek, but back then, people would laugh at you if you say you're a geek. If you were into, playing games and reading comics, they'd be like, "Uncle bro," this kind of thing. So I used to hide it, and but the truth was, after every social night in secondary school or after every party in university, I would still go back to my dorm and then read a comic book or draw. And then it was almost like keeping a secret and not letting my true self out. And I was good at keeping the secret, because everybody thought, hey, that's the cool kid. They didn't know that I was somebody who just really couldn't wait to go and plan Street Fighter, and burn all my pocket money at the next arcade playing Street Fighter. I remember my mom asked me, why am I so broke, one week into going to school? And she didn't know I'd been going to one arcade nearby to play Street Fighter. And that was it growing up for me. I finished university, and from school, because there were a lot of strikes then. Anybody that knows Ife knows, we had various long periods of strikes, right? Where I think there was a period where we literally had a year and a half, and we're still in the same semester, not even the same year, because of strikes, And so during that break, I thought, okay, what's the next mature thing I could do with my being a geek? And I decided to try fashion, right? And, I started drawing out designs because it was close to drawing superhero costumes, right? I started drawing out designs, and I started trying to do a business. So I became a model for a fashion company briefly, and I really was there to just learn the ropes. And after 3 months, when I knew, what it was like, and it was a pretty simple model. You get some tailors in Obalende, you go and look for customers, you show them the clothes, you take it back to your tailors, let them sew it, you sit with them all night, they finish, you give it back to the client, right? After 3 months, I figured that out, and then I decided to wear my palm slippers and go out every day. To my mother's dismay, I sent you to school, you graduated from law, why are you selling clothes? But I've always had that spirit of doing my own thing, and it was the closest reasonable thing to me then that was acceptable than saying, okay, I was going to start drawing comics, right? At least I could design, and I could put my creative talents to the test. And then at some point in time, I just started seeing superheroes on TV. These were the days of Green Arrow, The Flash, by I think it was CBS. Then, and these shows were making $1 million per episode, right? At this point in time, I had successfully grown my fashion business, and I'd even added event management to it, and they were doing very well. I had a lot of clients in the banking sector and a couple of oil companies, so I was doing really good. I don't know if, I'm sure you guys were in the period of the linen boom. I'm partly responsible for people wearing linen up and down, and I just thought, okay, if the world is starting to accept superheroes, there's no better time. Of course, I had made some money from the fashion business I was doing earlier, and I could confidently say, okay, I was going to start diverting a lot of those funds to actually setting up a comic studio. So it was very intentional. It wasn't something that I fell into. And because I had been running the fashion business successfully, and I ran it for 7 years before I started Comics Public, I already started learning how to run a business. And it was doing very, very well, to be honest. Most people thought I would be like one fashion mogul going. And so everybody was shocked when I started doing comics by this side. Didn't get it. Apart from 1 or 2 of my clients who were pretty excited, people that were like me, who were geeks in disguise, hiding because we wanted to be cool for the, for the society, got it. And I think from there, I set it up, I started looking for people. And because I knew, principles of running a business, I knew I couldn't do it alone for various obvious reasons. I started looking for a team. That was the very first thing I did. And then once I found a team, it was go to work in the morning, come back, me and the team would assemble on my dining table, and, we would draw to like 3, 4 a.m. and I'll go to bed for just 2 or 3 hours and get up and go back, to run my fashion business in the morning. I remember we used to have a running joke then that we could cut power horse from our bloodstreams because we're just high on energy drink half of the time to stay awake. And suddenly, to our surprise, I had this strategy. I think I've answered the question. I don't know. Stop me, because there's a lot I can say. Stop me at any point in time.
You certainly have.
I don't know if I should go on or I should wait for the next set of questions.
Okay, let's go to the next question.
Okay. All right.
Thanks so much for that. Okay, the next question is okay, I think you've answered this already, because the next question is, have you always liked comics, and who are your favorite comic characters? Okay, who are your favorite comic characters as a child? Maybe you can tell us that.
That's a good one. So I'm the very classic. I like the very strong guys. I don't mess with the weak people. So I started out with Superman and Batman. Fact.
With who? Sorry?
Superman and Batman. It was Superman and Batman.
Batman, okay.
Yeah, they were the strongest. They were the best in each field.
Yeah.
Then, as I was becoming a teenager, I was introduced to X-Men, right? The
Introduced to
X-Men.
who? X-Men. Okay.
X-Men.
Yeah. Yes.
Somewhere in between, I used to eye Conan the Barbarian somewhere. Somewhere I was eyeing Conan the Barbarian, and I really liked the whole, masculinity of Conan. I felt like Conan was
Yeah.
just too cool and all of those kind of things. And the truth is, most people will not say, but Conan had some kind of sexual element to it, because he was always tested, and there was women always looked,
I remember. Yes.
Yes. So as a guy that liked seeing beautiful women, you read Conan.
Yeah.
Right? But moving on from there, so it was mostly Superman, Batman, I would say, and then the X-Men. I really, really, really like the X-Men, and I think number 4 would be Conan.
Okay.
Superman first,
Great.
Batman, X-Men all together third, and then Conan 4th.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So number 3, right, Africa's challenges and the world's challenges need creative solutions. How do you think in the education system in Nigeria, Africa, how do you think we can develop creative talent in schools better than we are currently doing?
So the very first thing, which I already think is already happening, because of the success that the creative community is providing, and the truth is, if you really, really look at the successful enterprises these days, that is not in the political sphere, you find out that they're all creative, creative acclaimed, if I can use that word, aligned. And so we need to start just introducing it like any other subject. It's really that simple. Schools and people in the educative sector or systems actually need to start adding creative studies as part of the main course. The same way you have English, the same way you have foreign language, the same way you have maths, we should start having things that deal with the creative sector. And now, when people hear creative sector, they think it's just about the arts. Creative sector, is your ability to think outside the box and also to manifest things from nothing, right? That really is what the creative sector is about. A lot of the technologies that we find today, you find out that they have been expressed in creative ways in the past. Like, get the people in the technological sector or in the technological sector start to think about, okay, how do we make these things come to pass? You look at a lot of things today and you find out that movies, comic books and stuff like that have been talking about those things since, flying cars, holographic images and stuff like that. But when something becomes visual, the mind can now explore on how to make it possible, right? And so I feel like first things first, the very basics, it should be as compulsory as maths and English, where we have creative knowledge or creative studies, where we start to teach the various aspects of creativity. And the creativity, branches out to everything, innovation, even these days, user interfaces. And when we're in a world now that is governed by AI, I would say, learning things like creative language, creative prompts in order to manipulate today's technology, in terms of creating things. I dare say that, learning prompting language right now would be very lucrative in the next 4 to 5 years. Most institutions would be run by smart softwares, and you will need people who would know how to set in the right prompts to get the right results. And those would be based on creatives who already can visualize what they're trying to achieve and then clearly articulate it in prompts and creating the future that we will have soon. So I feel like it should just be included into our syllabus from basics, the same as English or math.
I totally agree with you on that. Thanks so much. And I like your definition as well of of creativity as well. Thank you very much. Okay, so the next one is back in the day and even now, most African parents and teachers would frown at a child wasting his time. Well, with your success, it appears as if comics are serious business. Are they?
Oh, yes, they are. Yes, they are. And I think most families don't even understand how lucrative it is these days, right? The truth is, an inside gist that most creative people know now is that you can't even tie a creative person down anymore because they have multiple clients from all around the world, right? First things first, creating comics is now a universal language. It's not something that is, tied down to a particular region or language, right? We have artists from Brazil, from different places, from China, writing to us to say they want to work with us, right? We have clients from all around the world, people like Meta, Al Jazeera. I can go on, top companies from different places, GW coming out, working with us here from Nigeria. And as a business, I can easily tell you that 90% of our revenue comes from outside the country, right? So that in translating that is that means foreign exchange. You get what I'm saying? So yes, it is. It's a serious business. And Nigeria, for example, is seriously lacking behind. And it's not lacking behind because there are no opportunities in the business. It's simply for two reasons. A, we don't have sufficient professionals in it. That's number one. And so I'm still happy about it because it allows businesses like mine to still shine, right? But most importantly is because most people do not recognize that it is actually a business. We're still, if you ask me, we're still focused on localized revenue instead of, it's almost like learning anything that has to do with computing these days, where you're creating a job opportunity for yourself anywhere in the world. And so it's the same with the business of comics. I'm also in a time where everything is now digitalized, right? Everything we interact with is a screen. What that means is that you need visuals for every single thing because screens determine that you have visuals to interact with. So anything that has a user interface, which is everything these days, right, requires art. So yeah, the business of comics is lucrative.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Okay, tell us a little bit about your company, Comic Republic. Has it been around for some time? How did it start? I think you touched a little bit about that earlier on.
Yeah, so officially we're 10 years old last year. Was it this year? Please. It was not last year.
Yeah.
We're 10 years old last year. Last year, June. We became 10, so this year will be 11. That's officially, but the business itself is 13 years old. So yes, we have been around for a bit. I say officially because we incorporated 3 years after the start date. That's when we are like, okay, this thing is actually becoming something. Let's quickly go and incorporate it, right? And I remember at that point in time, we were about to do something for First Bank. First Bank was about to put an ad in our comic books, and we thought, okay, before we go on this endeavor, let's incorporate the business. And that was 3 years after we started. So it took us about 2 years to figure out how to actually make it into a business, even though I had a clear plan, but in terms of actually getting the confidence. We're a character-based entertainment company. That's what we are. Character-based entertainment, media and entertainment company. And so we create characters to entertain people, right? But within that have brought different ways of monetization, especially in the case of where we do narrative storytelling for businesses, right? Businesses need to communicate to staff internally and to customers externally, right? They need to communicate new products And even as far as people don't like the word, but it says they are agendas. An agenda is what you are, your purpose, right? And so a lot of them come to us, especially if the market is Africa, Nigeria in particular, or Black people around the world in general, right? Let's say people of African origin, instead of people of Black. So people of African origin around the world in general, right? And so anytime those companies want to communicate to those set of people, they come to us, right? Primarily, we also do illustrative narration for a lot of other companies for other subjects. For example, Stanbic releasing a new app, stuff like that. So that is the byproduct of us releasing comics. We publish a comic book every 2 months. We're the only company from Africa that does that. Every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks. Sorry, not every 2 months. Publishing a comic book every 2 months, every 2 weeks. We're the largest comic publishing outfit in Africa at the moment, based on our numbers. And also that because we publish every 2 weeks, no other company has been able to achieve that in Africa as at now. And we do full comic books. They're not strips. They're not this. There's your standard full minimum 24-page comic books that comes out. We have a collective universe of superheroes. So we just don't publish single titles. It's a collective universe that you'll find same as DC or Marvel. And again, it's only those two other people who are doing that in the world. We are the next company who is actually creating this huge universe where all our characters are interrelated and the stories are running at the same time. What else have I missed? We're presently getting about 2.5 million page views monthly. And we've just been telling the stories of African superheroes. We say we want to put Africa's best foot forward, right? So everything we do is geared in showing the best aspects of our history, our culture, our lives. We want to show the world that we can be superheroes. We want to show the world that we can save the world. But most importantly is to show the world that you can be, we want to try and inspire people to be icons and to be good people, despite the color of your skin, where you're from, or your background. It just takes a decision and the will to do good, and we can be our brother's keepers, right? But we take it from an African-centric perspective first, and going further down, you see that we're Nigeria first, and then Africa, and then the world. So go Africa to the world. We just recently closed the deal with Universal Studios, where we are licensing our IP to Universal to convert to TV and film. And so in about 2 years or less, you start to see TV, live action TV, not animation, shows and movies based on African superheroes, which is a thing that we're pretty excited about.
That's very exciting. I look forward to that. Thank you very much. Okay, I think there's some of those things you've covered already, actually. I have a question here, but I think you've covered most of it. It said that considering the fact that Universal Studios is one of Hollywood's biggest movie production companies, having produced blockbusters such as Jurassic Park, the Fast and Furious franchise, and the recent box office hit Oppenheimer, your contract with them is definitely a big deal. Then I asked, how did you come about? How did it come about? I'm not sure you actually answered that one yet.
That's a very good question. It was very intentional. Very, very intentional. And I dare say it took a lot of hard work. But when it did happen, I would say that there was a lot of grace, in eventually making it happen. I hear people say opportunity meets luck, right? But I can tell you that there are a lot of people who are prepared, but they still just have never met that opportunity, right? So, okay, I think it's preparation means opportunity or something like that, right? I actually believe preparations and blessing. Forget the opportunity part. Like you prepare, and then if you're fortunately blessed, it just you find the right opportunity. I think it's the blessing that brings the opportunity, and I consider Comic Public being truly blessed But we were prepared in the sense. So it first started with us. I remember when we posted that we had just engaged a foreign news agency to talk about Comic Republic. I remember, sarcastic posts saying, "Why wasting our money? Focus on your local industry first," and stuff like that. So we actually engaged one or two news studios to talk about us in the foreign space. And it just took one of them to write an article, and the floodgates just opened. Everybody, it's almost like they didn't know we existed. And the moment they found out that we existed, we just started getting interviewed by everybody, CNN, Al Jazeera, New York Times. It was just crazy, right? And then from there, people started saying, "Oh, okay, so, we used to get messages like, did you actually make this in Nigeria? No, tell us, who are your foreign artists, right?" I'm like, "No, it's all these creatives are from here." And then after a lot of that, we started trying to pitch to studios on our own, maybe 5 years down the line. They all sent us back to say they don't work with studios, they don't work with companies directly. And that was the first lesson that we learned, that they work with agencies. And so we had to look for an agent in the US, because that's at that point in time, that's where Hollywood is. So we're like the biggest studios in the US, right? So, we got one agent at first. We were not very happy with them. We actively started looking for another, and then we found CAA. And CAA was one of those things, which is why I always tell people these days that, look, if something crosses your mind, if it just don't say it's too much for you or it's impossible, just try. What's the worst that will happen? You get a no, right? So when we reached out to CAA represents biggest companies in the US. It doesn't get bigger than CAA. And so we wrote to them and said, "Hey guys, we would like you guys to be our agent." We wrote with, "Well, we've done our part." We probably will not reply, but we've done our part. And then we got a mail back, asking for a meeting, and that began a 2-year journey to signing them up as our agents, right? And after 2 years back and forth, contract negotiations and stuff like that, and it was too grueling because they don't represent anybody. They're very, very strict with their criteria and everything, because again, they represent the biggest studios in the US, the biggest actors and actresses. If you just Google them, you'll be shocked, right? And they are always in one lawsuit or the other because of the kind of people that they represent, right? And so 2 years of them running us, making us jump the loops and meeting their criteria, and eventually sign them on, right, as our agents. And from there, we now started. So what they do is, because everybody comes to them, so for example, a Universal, a Netflix, a Paramount, all of them come to see and say, "Hey guys, what's the next big thing that you would introduce to us?" Right? And we were already their clients, so they kind of like match clients with clients, if that makes any sense, right? And so they're always looking for stuff to package. And so that was one of the things they like to do. Is your stuff worth packaging, right? Will our audience be interested in? And fortunately for them, that's why I said we were prepared. We were just ticking off all the boxes. They were blown. That's why they even engaged us in the first place. Like, "This from Africa? What's going on?" So, they were ticking all the boxes, and then they introduced us to one client after the other. It was an amazing experience. Most people say it was a difficult experience, but for us it was amazing because we had to meet up with international standards in terms of quality and delivery and the way we do business, right? And they held our hands through it. So do it this way, do this presentation this way, do this pitch deck this way. You have to wait, don't reach out. They vet our emails and stuff like that. So it was, an eye-opening experience. I believe as a business, we got a lot better with having CAA as our agent up until we signed with Universal. And once we started negotiating with Universal, because we had CAA in front, they recommended it to us, a US IP lawyer who we brought under our payroll, who handled our IP in the US. And it was, handling the negotiations with Universal, and we're able to close the Universal. So that's how we got Universal. I don't know if that was too much information.
No, it's not. It's very exciting to hear all that. It sounds like a lot of work, to meet, because you can imagine, I mean, people who haven't done this sort of thing with an African company before, they'll be particularly tough. Because one, they will not expect an African company to meet up in the first place, and then even when you do, when they look with it, and it seems like you have, there'll still be that thing in the back of their mind that really they'll want to push so much harder to be sure that this person is somebody they can really represent. So that must have been a lot of work, a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of anxiety as well, because not really knowing how it's going to go over that period. So congratulations, that's wonderful.
I think I should use this point to emphasize something, right? For some reason, right? My alagidi and stubborn head, I think it played a crucial role in negotiating with these people, because they had certain terms which they say that even their US companies or their clients around the world, would agree to, and I was like, no. Right. So, for example, things like, your bank must be domiciled in the US, for example, right? Or your company must be registered in the US, for example. And I was like, no, that's the whole point of what I'm doing, right? The whole point of what I'm doing is to build capacity in Nigeria. And so I am not registering my company in the UK, in the US. I'm not opening a bank account in the US. You're going to pay into that Nigerian bank account. Right? It was things like that where I insisted that it had to be Nigeria and Nigeria, right? And we've had conversations like, you guys are not serious, come back, and I'm like, okay, and I did not switch, because for me, from day one, it was very, very important to build capacity here, because that was the problem. I hated the fact that I had to jump loops to sign up with an American agency. But the truth is, we didn't have that capacity, and hence they were necessary, right? And right now, as of today, I am happy that I signed up with them, because we're a lot better. I would give them their flowers. But that's the whole point, we can't learn if we're not allowed to grow, right? And so beyond that, I would say that, look, it's about us appreciating and cherishing what we have, but most importantly, defending it. I keep hearing a lot of us saying, okay, no, let's push African culture, let's push this, let's push that. But at the first sign of money on the table, we throw it away, right? It's also part of when we're dealing with Universal. One of the things I said was I wasn't going to sell the IP, because at the end of the day, it's important that Nigerians own the bottom line, right? And so what I was going to do was I was going to license it. That money has to come back to us. That's eventual bottom line, that ownership. And that's another thing we don't get. We quickly give out everything for cash on the table now, right? But that is not sustainable in the long run. The people who are buying up these things are the ones that own it and constantly make money from it. And like everything else, you should actually be planning more long term than short term. So for us, it was, no, we're just going to license it to you. We need to have the rights to it. Go and make as much money as you want from it while we're making money with you. When you're done, return it back to us, and it's ours at the end of the day. So that was crucial also in negotiating the deal with Universal. And again, this is why I say we were blessed, because somehow they agreed. Still don't know why, but they agreed, and we're where we are today.
Praise God, because like you said, one could easily have given it. Like you said, when people start throwing money on the table, throwing money in your face, there's a big chance that the one will grab it, especially when one is dealing with these sort of big American companies, big American studios. There's a tendency, if one is African, to feel not inferior, but to feel smaller than them, and to take whatever it is they decide to give. So I really give it to you that you stood your ground. You mentioned that too. I think you mentioned that during the Omnibus as well, and I was very impressed by that, because not many people are going to do that. But by doing that, you've actually now opened the way for others. So it's I must commend you for that. Okay, let us go to another question. You told us that you've done that already. Okay, what advice would you have for school children who have discovered that comics, drawing, whatever it is where they tell advice? And what advice would you have for parents of such children?
So I lost you for a little bit.
Okay, I said, what advice would you have for children, Nigerian children or African children who have discovered that this is where the talent lies? And then what advice would you have for the parents of such children? Because like you said, most African parents, even till now, are still very sort of, go and carry your book, go and do your maths, go and do your law, go and do your, so what advice would you have for the child who realizes that is where their talent lies? What advice would you have for the such parents who may think otherwise?
So I think I'll first start with, I understand where parents are coming from, because it's not easy for you to be a guardian and not guide, right? Can you still hear me?
I can hear you clearly.
Yes. 1 second. So I was saying that I can understand how hard it is for a guardian not to guard, right? And not to want to, guide the direction of your children, right? But I would say that in today's world where there is multiple opportunities in various fields that keep evolving, for example, the richest people in the world today are not doctors, lawyers, they're people who are into innovation science in different fields, Elon Musk and people like that. I would say that when you see that your child has a passion, allow and support them develop that passion, while you also kind of, support them in terms of learning various skills at the same time, but still focusing on their passion. We're in a world this day where you cannot be a master of one thing, but yet multiple things, because the world is becoming increasingly complex and dynamic, and the range of services that can be rendered these days is just, the range is far. So I would say that in the creative space or any other space, when you find out that your child has a particular passion, actually zone into that passion and help them develop it, while you're also, assisting them in developing various other skills, but ensuring that their passion takes priority. I would say that would be my advice to parents.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. Okay, so we're down to our last question now, which is, do you have any regrets at all about abandoning law, the more conventional career path, like you just mentioned, which is what you did at school? Any regrets at all following the path you've taken?
Looking at my colleagues, none whatsoever. I think it's a blessing that I abandoned law.
Excellent. Okay then, I think that was a very obvious answer, really. From everything we've heard. Thank you so much, Mr. Jide. Nice to see you again, like I said. God bless you, and thank you, Rachel, as well. So, like I mentioned, our edition is going to come out. It should come out by the 23rd of this month. So once it's out, I'm going to definitely share with you as well. Okay.
Just let us know so that we can, push our audience to it also. And thank you very much for having me. I'm available anytime you guys need a chat or another interview.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank
God
you.
bless you. Thank you for everything.
Thank you.
And congratulations yet again with your University Studios. Great. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Yes, bye.